Most people hear the words heart failure and think it's the end of the road. But there's a small group of physicians in this world who hear failure and immediately start planning a comeback. Today's guest doesn't just treat hearts, he revives futures. He is an advanced heart failure and transplant cardiologist based in Memphis, leading care within the Baptist Memorial System. He trained across some of the most rigorous institutions in the world, from Russia to Yale to the University of Florida and ultimately the Cleveland Clinic, where he refined the skills that define him today. He's also the force behind a globally recognized Instagram account, @HeartTransplantDoc, a voice that has made complex heart science accessible to millions and has challenged how people think about their health, their habits, and their hope. This conversation is about science, yes, but it's also about grit. It's about the emotional weight of deciding who gets a new heart and the journey that begins when someone finally does. Dr. Dmitry Yaronov is here. Welcome back to Eyes Wide. All right, we're back, and I want to thank everybody for listening. If you've spent any time on Instagram and care even a little bit about your heart, you've probably seen this man. He's the cardiologist who cuts through the noise, the one who tells you the truth you need to hear, not the version designed to make you feel comfortable. He's built a massive following because he makes life and death medicine understandable, relatable, and impossible to ignore. Today, we're going behind the account, into the real story, into the training, the mindset, the weight, and the purpose of a man who lives at the center of the most complex decisions in cardiology. Dr. Dmitry Yaronov, welcome to Eyes Wide.
Hey, Craig. Great to be here.
So, where does today find you?
So I'm actually home, Memphis, Tennessee. This is my little recording studio here as well. Not as pretty as yours, but hey, at least I have one.
Yeah, this one is makeshift, but it's working for now. As the podcast grows, as the show grows, I'd love to get into a permanent studio. That's my dream.
I don't think there's a shortage of studios in LA, right?
That is true with everything that continues to move out of LA. The more and more studio opportunities. That is true. So let's get right into it. There's a lot we want to talk about. You are a mover and shaker in the industry in more ways than one. I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to work with you, to work together launching a new therapy, and I consider it just a real golden piece of my career that I get to look back and say, I did this with you. And so it was an honor for me. And, let's get into this idea of turning into heart success. And I don't know if that term has gotten too played out these days. I know it was something that we really wanted to lean into when we were working together, because so many people see it as this life sentence, and it used to be. But take us through that journey right now.
It's not that we talk about heart success all the time. I didn't hear this term, recently. It's been there for a while. And, I became a believer only when I heard it from my patient. It was a funny story. I was seeing a new evaluation, a brand new patient that comes in, and I'm sure they were told before they have heart failure, or maybe not. But the bottom line of it, they had heart failure for a while. And this was the first time when I saw him and focused on the clarity of the diagnosis, what heart failure was, what that meant for him, and so on. And he was so stunned by the words heart failure. He told me word to word, wow, it sounds like this is the end. And I was like, wow, that's the last thing I wanted to hear, from you today, because that's not the point of this conversation. The point of this conversation is to make sure that, here we are and we're going to fix it. We're going to reverse it. We're going to, do everything possible for you to live longer, feel better, all the things we do. But that perception, and a perception mattered. And I think that that's what really made me a believer, that it's really not, the right way to call this. It's not heart failure. It's not the end. The end is when you don't know your numbers, you're not doing well, you're not in the right office, no one is treating you for heart failure, and, truly making this story into success. That what, this whole paradigm of failure to success is all about.
So I've been following your kind of development or explosion, if you will, on Instagram. I think around 400,000 1,000 followers at this point. It's not pretty impressive. It's very impressive. At first glance, I mean, you look like a very young guy. And so is that something, as you continue to rise in the specialty of heart failure and become a prominent figure in heart failure, the disease state and treatment, and who people look to as far as being a thought leader, are people taken aback by the fact that you're not in your 60s or 70s at this point?
I was actually going to ask you, is it good or bad when you're so young? And I ask myself all the time, is it good or bad? For me, the answer is always, clear. It's good. That answer is not clear for everyone.
Mhm.
It's interesting. Just went to. I was invited to look at a prospect of a different type of job, and clearly, just for everyone, I'm not going anywhere. But I was, just had a conversation, and the answer was, "Gosh, you're so young. I don't think we can commit to this." I'm like, "Oh my god." That's the saddest or funniest thing I've ever heard. Hopefully when I look old and I act old, and then when I'm tired of recording, running, being on call, hopefully, I have some type of desk job where, passion is not required. So that's how I see my 60s. Hopefully I'm not going to have enough energy to be run around doing everything I do right now. So that's why I say, like, young means good. Young means you have enough energy, you have enough passion. And that's what I think when you're most, you should be most successful when you're young. I don't think you should be most successful when you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s. That, kind of like you can run the wave, but
Mhm.
you should be most successful when you have energy to spend. So yes, I do think it's a good thing. I do think that I have a lot of energy right now, and that's where I'm using it. Instagram and just social media in general is just one of those examples. I had a lot of energy, and I felt like there's a glaring gap between where our patients are and where we are, and where they're learning their information, where we're learning our information, and how we're living in completely two parallel worlds. And our failure to recognize that our patients are not learning medicine from up to dates of this world, from medical books of this world, or from some type of discussion at the grand rounds. Um, and as long as we continue to think that we penetrate our information, penetrate our patients, we will continue to make same mistake over and over and over again. And I think that's where all this came to fruition. I started just going out there and talking to patients in what we call algorithmic way. The way Instagram talks to you about, and it just took off. There was a lot of good responses from patient community primarily, and I feel excited. We have a lot
No,
of plan. You know,
I would agree with so you mentioned a lot of things there, and I'm going to try to replay each of them back so we can comment on each of those because I think you're spot on. And you know how I think. That's fairly obvious. You're someone that I gravitated towards instantly. The moment I met you, I knew that you were someone that I wanted to be involved with. I wanted to make sure that you were involved with the therapy that I was working to bring to market with a few great individuals that worked with you in the day to day. And so that was automatic for me. Hopefully, many of us have had the opportunity to deal with it because if you are put in a position where people are doubting you because of your age, that's really a nice problem to have. While you might reflect upon it in the time and just say, oh, it's tough that people are looking to me that I'm not wise enough, or I don't have the right background, or I'm not experienced enough to excel in the current role I'm in. And the truth of the matter is, I think they're probably just jealous. If you really want to know the truth, if you're speaking of colleagues and whatnot, when it comes to patients or other people that are relying on you, sure. If you're on the younger side of things, people are going to have this natural inclination to just be like, whoa, how could he possibly know? How can he or she possibly be able to offer me all of the right information, all of the right suggestions, because they haven't lived enough life? But the truth of the matter is, things are happening so fast in today's day and age. It's so fast. It's scary fast. And you mentioned having the energy and the ability to keep up. My goodness gracious. If you rest for a second, it passes you by so quickly. The information is just racing. And if you truly want to establish yourself, you want to be at the forefront, being considered an innovator, an early adopter, good luck if you don't have that energy, and good luck if you think that you already know it all. That experience that everyone looks at as what's going to be a separator and something that should be a benefit likely is going to get in the way of helping you to make the right decision, because your head gets all full of this idea that I've been doing this for years, I know what to do, and you're not open to the idea that there might be a possibility of a better way to do something.
Interestingly, I do sometimes, nowadays less than I used to, get this initial reflection from a patient. Oh my God, I did not expect you to be so young. And I usually joke back. From time to time, I say a different joke, but usually that's where it ends. It doesn't continue in that way, because a lot of times, patients are very, they read the cues, they understand what they're there for, they understand where this conversation is going, and trust is, it's a very ephemeric structure, right? So, you know, they look at you, how you walk in, how you handle the conversation, how you hold their hand, those, nonverbal cues and so on. So, actually, my patients are the ones who have the least problems with this. And it's
Yes,
interestingly that we
I have
are,
no
as a
doubts.
professional community, have that problem and talk about it all the time. And but yeah, I agree with everything you just said, except that most of the time this is not a patient issue. This is rather a peer to peer issue.
So, uh, I'd love to lean into that a little bit more if we could. And because this is something that, regardless of the specialty you're in, so I've been cardiology for years, and I will say that there tends to be this keeping of the guard that takes place where you've got the young up and comers having all this energy, all of this chutzpah. I'm going to bring a word back from the old country here, and just fire, ready to just rock and roll, to learn as much as they can, to be able to be as influential as they can. And they get a thumb put on them and said, just wait your turn, not now. And I think the suppression of the energy, this youthful energy and this exuberance, can be considered a real problem in medicine right now.
Yeah, I was going to certainly tell you that cardiology is not only the one example of this problem. Certainly, this is a problem, and there's a lot of brilliant people who created the field, who contributed to the field, a lot of people who developed the things that we are using nowadays. And old guard is, I think it's everywhere. There is definitely a problem with, I guess, contingency plans. Sometimes what I struggle the most with is not the fact that old guard is there, and because I want them to be there as long as possible
Of
to
course.
share the experience, to continue to help us, and it's that transitions of experience, because that's what they a lot of times guard you off. How
Hmm.
do you get this experience that you will need 20 years from now if people in front of you are not willing to share that experience? Who's going to go to FDA 20 years from now to argue for your device or your drug if you don't have, your old timers are not sharing that experience? And I think, that's one problem. And problem number two is certainly, I don't believe that the only differentiator in the field should be your tenure or your experience. I mean, it just doesn't work like this. If you don't let others in, people who have the impact, have the outcome, have the ability, to do it, and you are the only one who controls the narrative, there will be a problem. So, yeah, I think we're all dealing with this. I know for sure we're dealing with that in my field. I know there are
Yeah.
multiple other places where we deal with that. So, yeah, that's the question for next generations.
Yeah, it definitely happens in other specialties. I will say, um, comparatively what I've experienced in the last year versus what I've experienced for the last 25 years, it's not even close. Cardiology seems to have a little bit more of this happening, and I don't know why that is. You mentioned like a succession plan, and this is something that, as you were saying that, I started thinking, and this seems to be a topic of conversation rather frequently in the vision world, especially at the company Envision that I work with or I work at right now. And the more tenured individuals are constantly looking for who is going to be able to pick up the baton and carry out the sheer volume. Like the young people coming out now, those that are going through fellowship, residency, and getting their first jobs, they likely have no idea the amount of time and effort it takes to, one, build a practice, but then two, sustain and grow that practice. And so it definitely takes being able to see what those individuals that have built extraordinary practices, like what they actually have to do in their day to day. And to your point, if no one's showing the younger generation of a specialist those ropes, it's going to be real difficult because you're going to have this push more towards this, what do we call it? I don't want to say managed care, but a push towards these non-privatized practices, or a push towards more of a where a doctor is more just a salaried, just doing procedures or just seeing the patients that already exist versus going out of their own and wanting to build something for themselves.
Shift workers. Yeah, that's the mentality of shift worker. So yes.
Got it.
Yep. I've never had a patient who comes to I guess there are different examples, right? So we all hear about Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic, and everyone will go to Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic and have no idea who's the doctor there. Sure. But majority of the time when you are practicing in the community, people come to see you because they want to see you. People come to see local providers because they've heard, because their family member was there, especially down south. People treating the same families for generations. And so clearly, practice building is a skill. Clearly, reaching out to community is a skill. Clearly, we call it outreach, right? There's just a big name for activities that a lot of us will do in the community to help build the practice, make your name known, your practice name known, and bring the right patients at the right time to make sure that they get the right care. Um, yeah, I think it's certain the skill that they're not going to teach you in the fellowship, and that's a skill you either learn or someone shares with you. Your mentors when you go into the practice. But just like you said, this is a dying skill right now, especially because we are having a lot of what we call a hospital-owned providers, right? So here's the hospital. You can come and work there, or you may go elsewhere. And you don't have to build any type of practices. Patients are likely just going to be end up in the emergency room and do this. So it's less so in the outpatient world. It's more so in the inpatient world, and ability to build the practices. By far one of the most underappreciated skill that you as a physician are going to get or not get.
So let's keep leaning into that, because as you talk, I think so. Regardless of your age, to me, when talking to you, all of that is washing away. It's actually all washed away because
I'm not that young.
I know that, and that's you just look,
so
you just
funny.
have youthful exuberance, and embrace it. I promise you.
I love it.
Yeah. With regard to that, though, so let's take it back, because you made a point about you shouldn't be judged just by the longevity that you're in a specialty or even in a role. And I mean, I couldn't be a bigger subscriber of that philosophy. You should be judged on your energy and your merits and what you accomplish and just feedback. And it's like, let's dive in, because there's so many differentiators to how you are versus others in the space. Where did it start? Take us back.
It started the same way like it would normally for everyone. I just had to make up my mind where to go and what to do. And I knew I did not want to be number 15 in a row to, just sit and do nothing at a prestigious institution, or sit and work real hard at a prestigious institution, I should say, where patients just come to that institution because they come to that institution. And I wanted a challenge. I wanted to be, number three, number two, and eventually be number one. And it's definitely was my drive to be able to drive. And I wanted to grow myself. I wanted to learn something new every day. Certainly, when you just get out, you've been in that training for years. For me, that was 7 extra years after the medical school. And I had to master the skills. So there's no question you should not just go on your by yourself, especially in the highly skilled specialty like mine. So yes, I was very cognizant about that part. But things like building your own practice, growing the practice, building a new program, that is certainly it's not written anywhere. There's very few publications out there, how to do so, and all of them are extremely biased because that's your own bias. And then I started going and just by my own mistakes with my own biases, learning how to do so. Now I can do a 3 hour lecture just on how to build a practice without any preparation. But certainly, 70 years ago when I just started, this would be, I had no clue what to do. Every
So
day,
it's, yeah,
every
go
day
ahead.
going back, trying to understand where those ultimately, look, we're all in my field, all of us are struggling about one main problem. Those patients that we see come too late and we cannot help them. Whatever armamentarium, tools, devices, surgeries, all of them have to be done timely. And if we meet those patients when it's too late, they're too sick, their heart is too sick, their body is too weak, they cannot undergo any type of procedures that can improve their quality of life or make them live longer. They're unfortunately just here to die. And that's the whole point of your practice. You are building a practice where you going out there teaching your peers about timely referrals, making sure they refer to you, and then you apply all your knowledge to help those patients.
So do I have this right? So Connecticut, Cleveland, Florida, then Memphis?
Yeah, almost. Connecticut, Florida, Cleveland, Memphis.
Oh, I mixed it up. Okay.
Up,
So
down, up, down.
gotcha. So talk to me about this decision, because what you're mentioning about building a practice and outreach, for the listeners that may not be really aware of what you're doing right now. So you went out, you left Cleveland Clinic, and for those that may not know, it's one of the most renowned heart failure institutions in the world. And the reason I say this is because you made the decision to say, I'm in a good role here. I have something. I could stay here, but I'm going to go out to Memphis, Tennessee, because I feel that there's a calling for me to go out there and build something. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said. So, look, I was young and I had a lot of energy. And I knew that the delta that I will possibly be able to achieve at the Cleveland Clinic will be so, so small, right? It's the most advanced heart failure institution in the world. You know, everything is already discovered, all the roles are already assigned. You're a little element in this well-oiled machine. You come, you plug yourself in, and it's not a bad thing. I'm not trying to look down at it. A lot
Yep.
of people love it. You know, I actually was contemplating not to do so because by just being at the Cleveland Clinic, you get smarter. By just diffusion, I only joke partially with future fellows. I tell them, hey, if you learn nothing, if you don't open a single book, don't do single procedure, by just walking those hallways, you will get smarter. That's the nature of it. There's so many smart people around you. By just observing, you'll get a lot better. So yes, this environment is very different from where I went. I came to an institution that already had, a groundwork, but definitely did not have anything Cleveland Clinic level. Did not have the same access, nor to research, nor to cutting edge technology. Um, and it's in the mid South, right? So that's where the mortality is the highest, where most of heart failure is, where heart failure is the youngest, where there is the most diabetes, most hypertension, most of every type of disease. I've met the sickest of the sick, a lot of times we joke that people are sickest in Cleveland Clinic, but oh boy, when I came to Memphis, I learned that's definitely was not the case. So yeah, and practicing in an environment like this, doing a heart transplant environment like this is very different. One of my
So
mentors always joked saying like, "Hey, the only difference is in Cleveland Clinic, there's like at any given time, there's 7 people around the bed. Here is just you and the
yeah,
nurse, and most of the time that's the case, just you and the nurse."
yeah, it's almost like leaving, if I can bring it to being a medical device rep terms, it's like leaving a big box company like a Medtronic, like an Abbott, and then going to a startup. A lot of people think that they can do what they do at these big box companies and they can do it anywhere. And the truth of the matter is, when they get to those smaller companies, when they get to those smaller environments, those more startup rural areas where you have to build something, they find that they actually don't have those chops. And so you got to have a lot of internal drive. You got to have the willingness to go out and grow and get after it. And I'm sure there's days when you first went out there and you were starting this journey and you were doing your outreach. I'm sure you put out an awful lot of hours, windshield time, getting out to the outskirts, getting your name out there. I'm sure there were days that you were like, you know what? I don't know if I made the right decision. I don't know if this is going to work out.
No, absolutely not. Yes, every day was like this. So, I did doubt myself every day. And, I doubt myself a lot less now. Obviously, it was the right decision. But then, I was looking for a different job by come November, 3 month into it. It's not just like walking into a well-oiled machine. Everything is different. You're different. Your expectations are different. You're not a fellow anymore. You're not a trainee. You are the doctor who's going to make the decisions. And a lot of us tell the trainees that your first year is the hardest year of your career. You're never going to be more stressed and things like this. Now, elevate it and say, hey, I'm going to at the same time build the practice. I'm going to start a new practice, going to do all of this. So, yeah, for sure. You know, um, every day was one of those days where this is going to be the last one.
So what's a day in the life like for you right now?
It's crazy. It's like fighting the fires, putting up the fires all the time. That's what I like. I come in the morning, I round, I go to clinic, I go to cath lab, I get into my car, I drive to a practice, do a lecture, do an outreach event, come back, see a couple more patients. That's part of what I like about heart failure. This is part of my practice that you usually don't get in any other cardiologist specialty. Now, there will be a week I'll be in the hospital. There will be very sick patients in the ICU. I'll be taking care of them. I'll be on call that weekend, and it will be a lot of work. I'll be so tired by the end of this week, and the following week, I'm going to go to clinic. I'll see patients who already had heart transplant. I will be looking at their outcomes, making sure they're doing fine. A lot less excitement in terms of the how fast you have to run. And the following week, I'll go to cath lab, and then the next week will be an outreach, and all of this in between. I'll have a bunch of meetings and everything. So there's diversity. There's every week you do something different. You don't do this repetitive. My tomorrow is going to look like yesterday, or my tomorrow is starting to look like yesterday. So certainly no lack of excitement in day to day.
So I mentioned that I've been following your start and your growth on Instagram, and it's great because even though we don't work together in the day-to-day anymore, I feel like I've gotten to watch each and every aspect of almost like your day-to-day. When you first started, there was a different tone to a lot of the stuff that you were doing. It was a little lighter. You're kind of establishing yourself. And I just followed along and watched. And then there was one post you had, and I forget how long ago it was. And it's like I'm getting chills just thinking about it right now. But you mentioned how no one prepares you for that day when you lose a patient. And dude, I know you're not an actor. And so watching you in that post where you usually are, I know that you're a guy, you always have a big smile on your face. And when I saw that post, I could feel your emotions in that. Can you talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, I knew from the first moment I knew exactly the post you're talking about. I started thinking about that post long time ago. You know, obviously, this is not something that you start thinking about only, when you start having an Instagram. Everyone thinks about it. Emotions are all over the place, especially in this field, but any other subspecialty. There's patient, there's human, there relationship, and losing patient is not something you ever get used to. That's not something they prepare you for. That's something you face and you deal with. And system itself demands a certain approach to how we deal with that. So, like you said, when I just started, the tone was different, but I felt like the people who were following, the people who we were having this communication with, they wanted to have this discussion. They wanted to see the real doctors, how they are, more so about, we are humans as well. We have emotions, we talk, we have, fun moments, we have bad moments, we have good days. And then the request was, show your human side. And I'm like, what else, more pressing that I can share with people that are watching is how I feel, on the days like this. And certainly, this was, obviously, there was a story behind that post, and there was a patient, and there was a discussion, there was a movement, and that's where it came from. And I did not, by far, did not expect this post to. I think it went over like 40 million views, and it's just crazy the responses I got from all over the world. It's not even funny. But that's like what makes this conversation valid. So this is doctors are humans, medical professionals are humans, nurses are humans, PAs and Ps, MAs, everyone who works in medicine. Everyone works under extreme stress, pressure, and no one talks about what do we do after we lose a patient. And again, the system is set up as such that you have to leave the room and keep going because there's another patients that you have to attend to. So and the thing that I wrote there was no one prepares you for this, and you don't just carry a stethoscope, you carry ghosts.
Mm,
And that's that was the post.
that's powerful. I've been fortunate enough, and I get to get behind the curtain a little bit with doctors, heart failure specialists, electrophysiologists before that, now ophthalmologists. And you bring up, I mean, what you said there, the idea that doctors are human beings too. I mean, I think that gets lost in it so much. The hours of the day, the exhaustion, the requirement to just walk out of the room and into another one, like you mentioned, like that is real and that takes a toll. And to have to go through that multiple times, not just once, I mean, that's heavy, man. And when I saw that post and I saw the exhaustion on your face in that post, and it got me because I think, do you remember the last time that we hung out live?
Yeah,
It
and
was
that was
Prague,
in
right?
Prague. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we hung out a few times in Prague, and to go like just seeing, just hanging out and having a blast. We're at a conference out there, and then to see that side of it and that human side of it. And then, people who are your friends, and you even though that they're doctors, you still know that they're human beings. And so when they have to go through an experience like that, it's tough. So I felt for you in that. And that's when I was hooked for life after that one, man. I
There you
was
go.
all in after that. So what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what does this road look like with regard to the social media and the Instagram side of things?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of plans for next year. A lot of plans. When I was just starting and I was partially joking with friends and people who were around who were helping me with, with those ideas. And um, I feel like, we were benchmarking of certain accounts. And, we surpassed those accounts a long time ago. And someone will be, answering back to me like, oh, that, look at them, that's what they're doing. And they still not going as viral. What else do you want? And I'm like, it's not about being viral. It's about just doing this for a certain reason, right? And our reason is to get to patients, and explain to them, the scientific part of it and talk their language. Don't just show the curves, survival, Kaplan-Meier curves, whatever. Talk their language and make sure that they understand that you're not a pharma shill, that you actually know what you're talking about, and you're able to explain to them what is the best way um, for them to be healthy, for them to have a good outcome. And it's not, the peptides, it's not the vitamins, it's not the, this whatever they're trying to sell you there, and being present there. So we definitely want to be the voice for, at least for cardiovascular community, because there's so much, there's a huge void there to explain to our patients what those devices are, what those drugs are, why we're so passionate about them.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
like you said.
I mean, there's clearly a void there because what I've also noticed about your content is when you post something, it lights up really fast. And the reason it lights up really fast, I would imagine, for my naivete for understanding the algorithm, is that people are sharing it an awful lot because you are touching on some key content in people's everyday lives that resonate with them, because these are the questions that they're asking in the day to day. Some of it is people are looking for a cheat code with their health. Other parts are they're going through some things and they're seeing you as a voice of information or a source of information for certain modalities, certain disease states, obviously heart failure, but it goes a little bit deeper than heart failure. You have a lot of prevention. You dispel myths in medicine and whatnot. And we can get to peptides in a second. Don't be talking too much tish on my peptides. We're going to get there. Not just yet. Okay. Wolverine strong. Okay. But with regard to dispelling the myths, I know that that's a big thing. And, I would imagine that those posts perform really well because people hear a lot of stuff right now. And so when you touch on some of those more in the media kind of the information floating around, when you touch on those types of things and you talk about dispelling 5 very common myths, I got to imagine that that is speaking right to the people.
We all like to think we know the algorithm. I like to think that I know my algorithm. No, I don't. I think it's about every time I try to predict this is going to be the post that's going to just, and then 8 hours after posting, I look at it and I'm like, that's it. And then there would be a post that like within an hour it goes like viral, and I could have never predicted. There's certain things you can suggest. There's a music you can use. You have to, part. That was my intent from the get go. When I said I'm going to give it a try and I want to talk to patients directly on social media, but I don't want to just talk to camera and just, give them the information. I want to make sure this is going out there, that this is seen, that they're hearing this. And to be seen, you have to be within the algorithm, right? So you have to find a way to make it algorithmic, to make sure the algorithm likes it and takes it and runs with it. Because, the point of me doing this conversation with my phone and get 500 views and no one ever sees it, and someone else talks about the benefits of vitamin C in combination with vitamin D that treats heart failure. I mean, all the nonsense that you see there all the time. Um, and there's also bad ways to play with the algorithm. Obviously, there are trigger words out there. Every
Mm-hmm.
time I use the word statin, I just get haters right away, jump on my page. Heart failure, interestingly, heart failure, you know, um, it is not just disease of elderly. There's close to 7 million people with heart failure out there right now in this country, not in the world, in this country. They project that by 2030 there will be close to 8 and over. So there's a lot of people. And, my patients, I wish, I would just tell you that all my patients are, 70 and 80-year-old grandmas and grandpas. No, I have 18, 19, 20, 30, 40-year-olds who come with one of the sickest and weakest hearts. Um, and, a lot of them would tell me, I wish I knew this before, or I wish I've heard about this before. And that's why I do this.
Yeah, I mean, from the very early studies that we did in the baroreceptor stimulation, I could not believe the wide array of ranges in heart failure, and especially if you start talking about, unfortunately, like women having the postpartum heart failure, things like that. It was just coming off the page, and all these patients, like truly, especially the patients that were looking for something that was new and novel and groundbreaking, it tended to be the younger patients with the disease, and I had no idea. And then you get into commercialization, and Medicare pays for a therapy and the commercial payers do not. Initially, when you build your utilization estimates, your pro formas, you're thinking, well, this is going to be a vastly majority Medicare only disease state. So as long as Medicare is paying for it, no issues. And then you start to really dig in. And again, the people searching for these things, the people that want to embrace these new therapies and new technologies don't have access to it. And that is a whole conversation for another day. I'm not going to keep you here for 3 hours, but that is something that isn't unique just to cardiology. That is all different specialties. I launched a glaucoma therapy in 2025, this year, in our vision clinics. And I thought glaucoma, definitely a blindness disease for the elderly. And time again, we've got much younger patients than 65 experiencing the horrors of fast developing glaucoma. And they've only got some of these older modalities, and it's a real shame.
Here's your another conspiracy theory is going to come out of this. Glaucoma. Yeah, I love those.
Yeah. So with regard to getting back to heart failure specifically, since I have you on the show, and we've been talking about the idea that people love getting information about health. I got to imagine it's top 3 Google search all the time. Some aspect of health. It's either like get thin, which is an aspect of health, right? Get thin, get rich, or get healthy. I mean, I think health is really the two out of the 3. Oh, and how to get your hair back. I think that's pretty big on there too, but then you can classify that under health too. So like I want to break some kind of news. I want to have some fun here. What's your personal approach to prevention and longevity?
So I'm actually more and more, starting to think that longevity situation because obviously, in medicine we measure longevity all the time, right? For us, if you don't have mortality, longevity outcome, most of the time you don't matter as the therapy device whatsoever. But this is sick longevity, right? After you get the disease. What about health longevity? Prevention is the best treatment. That is, everyone says it, no one practices it, and unfortunately, by the time you get the disease, you realize. I have so many patients ask me, "Hey, what about the diet? How can I just eat well and exercise to reverse it?" And that's the wrong time to ask about it, right? That's the wrong time to start thinking about it. And obviously, I see it firsthand. I definitely want to make sure that I keep a healthy weight, and not just by injecting Ozempic or Manjaro, by controlling what I eat. And it's not so much that I eat less; it's about what I eat. What I eat
Mm-hmm.
is so important. We forgot that we shouldn't be eating the out of a chemistry lab. We should be eating healthy food that is not processed. And it's just a big problem out there right now. And we just, everyone is struggling to understand why we still have not defeated the cardiovascular disease. Look how much and what we eat, right? Bad habits, those are simple things. You say like, smoking, vaping is better than smoking. No, it's way worse than smoking. We see so many disasters with this, but yet people put it out there, and that lives on Instagram, and no one dispels it. And then ultimately, exercise, sleep, and
Yeah.
stress. Those are the major 3 things that I now close to my 40s start thinking more and more about.
So I love that you had a few activities. Okay, so let me back up. The idea of prevention, I get it. Okay. The problem with prevention for most people, and I'm going to put myself into this as well. When you say prevention, it's tough because it's not actionable things to do. And that's why prevention's a concept, But people do better. I do better when it's actual things to do. So you mentioned exercise, right? Exercise to me is one of those table stakes in life. It's a no-brainer. I talk about time and time again, how you show up in life is how you show up in virtually everything else. Yeah, you can't get away from that. And so
But
the habits,
exercise.
yeah.
I think that the part of exercise is that's by far one of the best preventions, right? It doesn't necessarily translate into it in modern culture, but it prevents dementia, prevents cardiovascular disease, prevents cancer. I was just watching some GI doctors doing reels, and they all talk about how exercise is so critically important for your GI system, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I mean, it sounds, for me as a doctor, sounds like, is that really? Yeah, it is really. And even for me, it sounds like, wow, no, exercise prevents everything.
Everything.
Obviously, yeah, everything. It's just, we are looking at exercise, is the way to get ripped, right? Or to lose weight. But it's ultimately prevention. That's, by far one of the best way to prevent it.
Right. So I love the idea of exercise because it's actionable. And then the choices with diet. I mean, you nailed, in my opinion, you nailed it. I don't believe that, and again, this is something that you and I can talk about for a very long time, but this idea of preservatives and processed foods, it is the root of this evil. It is the root of the problem. People are constantly looking for low fat, low carb. It's all bullshit. Stay away from the processed food. Stay away from the ingredients that your body has no idea what to do with once it gets inside of you. Your digestive system has no ability to break it down, and it just becomes this land of confusion. That is what is going to get you in trouble for obesity, for a lot of the disease states that we talk about. And so I can't express this enough. And then, so I love that we're on the same page with that. Moderation and no processed foods, but enjoy food. Like, find what you like and just make it yourself, or go to places that you know are making it properly. Don't get fast food. Don't get stuff that comes out of a can, comes out of a bag. It is going to be the root of your demise. It just is. There's no way around that.
And, sometimes when I have these conversations, there are people that a lot of times will tell me they did not know this. And, we are, as just a society, the fact that there are still people who don't know this, um, I just don't believe that this is fair to anyone. We should be able to really translate it for everyone that just all this cans, packets, all of this is not by any means a healthy choice. It shouldn't go to your digestive system, period. But yet, we're still having to work on the fact that, to convince people that this is a problem.
And it really is a problem that people aren't aware. I mean, go ahead and get one of those protein or fruit plates from Starbucks. Okay. It's got apples in it, right? It comes with apples, like peanut butter or something like that.
Yeah.
Take those apples out of the package and just leave them out. Sure as shit. Okay. Without a doubt, they will be as white as Snow White's skin a day from the time that you open that package. There is nothing in the air that's going to cause those to start to degrade or biodegrade and rot. Okay. You go ahead and cut up your own apple. That thing's turning brown in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's scary how much preservatives the food gets laced with that has to go out to all these places. Think about it. I mean, you can go to a Starbucks on the corner anywhere in America. There's a Starbucks, and someone's got to deliver all that stuff. It all comes from one or a few places. And
Yeah.
do you think it was made that morning? No.
Big problem.
It was made likely, as sad as it sounds, it was probably made a year ago. That's scary.
That's truly scary.
Those egg bites, you freeze them. They've been around for a while. All right. So then let's take this a step further. Okay. Give me one thing. You mentioned exercise, can't use that, and you can't use diet. I want one more thing that every, say, 40 to 55-year-old should be taking seriously and doing right now.
Did we mention smoking? I mean, hopefully there, yeah. I mean, I hope that by now, when no one questions that is bad, I'll just figure out, I'll throw it out there. But yeah, please quit smoking. It's not a good thing. Certain, I love to be talking about it on Instagram. I talk about it all the time. Air pollution. Air pollution isn't just bad for your lungs; it's bad for your heart. There's microplastics. There's all of those things. Sometimes you're not going to be able to change, right? So you live in LA and you're not willing to move, or you can't move, right? You live in somewhere in New York City, very polluted. There are other things that I actually, you will be able to change. Healthy lifestyle things. Sauna, right? I love sauna. I love yoga. Because those things are not just about your physical health, they're about your mental health. Mental health is critically important. Mental health is associated with good outcomes or bad outcomes with that reason of cardiovascular disease, stress. How do you get rid of stress, right? So there are healthy ways to do so. Um, I mean, there's this list is endless. I can keep going on. And I always love to spice it with, the more times we're going to use the word statin today, the more use this idea is going to get. So I'll say statin. But there are medicines that are preventative medicines. Okay,
Hmm.
and maybe it's not a statin, for you, but if you have a genetic predisposition for cardiovascular problems. Your mom or dad, God forbid, had a heart attack in their 30s. And your cholesterol is through the roof despite what you do. You eat only green leaves and salads and nothing else, no animal protein. Boom. There are medicines that can prevent bad things happening to you. Guess what? You have diabetes, 3, 5 times higher risk of heart attacks. There are medicines to do this. You need to know your numbers. Sometimes just feeling well and looking great and having a six pack is not enough. Just had another post that I did. I don't know if you've seen that one or not, but there was a post about, how extreme diets, like
Yes, I
high
did see it.
protein, like a
Hmm.
carnivore type of
Yep.
diets, lead to heart attacks, strokes, and other problems. Every time algorithm triggers certain things, and now like I have another three of those videos ready to go because there's this bodybuilding influencer that died, there's that athlete that died, and any extreme is bad for you.
Yeah, I
Any
couldn't agree more.
extreme.
And to see it time and I mean, it's I'd like to say it time and time again, but it's more frequent than that. You hear of people who are my age and they're in great shape and they looked like an absolute beacon of health and done, drop
Any
dead to see it.
part of it certainly that beautiful look with six pack and this athletic body is not coming from nothing, right? So you have to work real hard. Diet, usually extremes of diet,
Yeah.
exercise, lack of sleep, and then peptides, right? Craig, maybe that's the time to talk about it.
Yeah, so let's go on that. So I was going to ask you about testosterone first, but then let's go on the peptides. And I don't know how long I have you here tonight, so I'm going to keep going until you tell me no mas. But I'll be. I know you're on the Central Time Zone here, but
Yes.
with regard to peptides, obviously it's all the rage right now, and most famous peptides, right? Are you mentioned the Ozempic and the Manjaro, right? Isn't that? But that's weight loss peptides. Okay. But I can gather just from the way you've spoken, I can kind of get a feel for what you're thinking about these peptides. Um, is there a possibility that there are some good peptides that you do believe in, or is it just across the board you don't believe in peptides?
Oh, I absolutely believe in GLP-1s. I mean, those are example of great peptides. They
Okay.
have great data behind it, right? So we have thousands and thousands of patients across different countries in the world enroll into a randomized controlled clinical trial. Um, this is the gold standard of testing any type of drug or any type of therapy for that, you know, uh, um, in that case. And certainly there are whole pipeline of peptides out there. Some of them are actually being tested right now. Some of them, may be beneficial. The problem is, I think the main controversy, if you will, is
Hmm.
that I have a lot of patients who are lining up to sign up for some type of CJC, ipamorelin, or you name it. You order it out of some small pharmacy, compounding pharmacy out of state of Florida,
Yep.
and just inject it to yourself. And at the same time, on the same page, we'll be saying like, "Oh my God, Ozempic is a scam. It's it has terrible side effects. People are going blind. This and that." I mean, look, none of those compounding, pharmacies ever going to give you something that is, gone through this rigorous testing, and all of this bro science from the gym is just fascinating. Again,
I haven't
if you
heard that
tell,
term before, but that is amazing. The bros. Oh my gosh,
oh
I
come
love
on.
it so much. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it's just as simple as this. Look, I'm not saying that if you are willing and able to lose all your weight that is, in excess by just diet and exercise, of course, that's the best way to do it. All right. When you have comorbidities, you have struggle with this, and it's truly, obesity becomes a disease. That's when we use it, right? And we have great outcomes. I think that there are certainly side effects, like with any type of medicines. There are side effects. Some are worse than others. Um, that's why even in longevity medicine, when we start going into, certainly there are things that will never be tested, right? So we're likely
Yeah.
not going to do a randomized control trial of people going to sauna Monday through Friday and then other group, doing the same exercise but without sauna. It's just hard to randomize. A lot of things are lifestyle. A lot of
Mhm.
things are, cold plunge. You name it. There's so many other things. Yoga at, in the central square on the weekend, or things like that. Certain things, I would tell you something not popular with doctors, but not everything needs to be tested. The fact that, sunset on the beach is likely good for your mental health,
Mhm.
I will take it without, any type of randomized control trial.
I like that. That works for me.
But, there is chemicals, some of them never been tested in humans. And right now, I know a lot of my patients are ordering those peptides nonstop. Some of them for longevity, some of them for healing, some of them for
Mhm.
muscle growth, you name it. So, yeah, I think that's where for me, it's a harsh stop right at that point.
So thank you for that. That's a lot of good insight. And it is unnerving. When you order the peptides, it's stamped all over there, watermarked, like not intended for human use, not been studied in humans. And you see that and you're like, oh man. And you want me to inject this?
Yeah.
It is difficult. And so the bro science does help with that because, of others that have done it. I took peptides for healing. After I ruptured my biceps tendon, I didn't want it to happen to the right arm too, because I weakened it through doing training of both arms. And you made a comment around a point that you're taking something from somewhere. And that's what ultimately scares me a little bit with this idea of peptides, healing, and whatnot. Like, what are you taking from in order to provide healing of this one thing? And that is kind of the idea of the law of the conservation of energy, nothing being created. And so I do have concerns around that. I did it for 3 months and I haven't done it since. But I do believe it helped quite a bit. It definitely helped to heal the arm, the one that I had to get surgically repaired, and the one that wasn't repaired definitely helped. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Do I think about a little bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul? Yeah, it crosses my mind. And is that kind
Placebo?
of,
What about placebo?
was it a placebo?
Yeah, I mean, look, every time we look at the clinical trial, it's impressive. Placebo
Yeah.
effect is anywhere between 20 to 30%. This is power of your human brain. You may be injecting, in the trial, you are getting a sugar pill, but yet you're
Hmm.
feeling better,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
It's it, and I think that's powerful because placebo doesn't come from anywhere. It comes from your brain. I'm firmly
Yes.
believing this.
Yeah,
It's not,
I
it's
agree.
you are telling yourself, I believe I'm on this drug and this is going to make me feel better. And yet, when you wake up with this motivation that I'm going to do better, just like in my day to day science, those people who have a positive attitude that would do anything possible to get better, they're the ones who do better. People who
Yes.
have a negative attitude and think that a lot of different bad things are going to happen to them, it will happen. That's just human nature. They say I don't have to run a RCT to do this. That's why a lot of times you just have to be very careful. Did it help me? I tried this NyQuil, and yes, it helped me, helped me sleep or knocked
Yeah.
me out. But anyway, so the placebo effect, that
Yeah,
is
that's
very
good.
powerful.
So, what about testosterone? What is your thought on testosterone replacement therapy for men in their 50s?
Yeah, so look, I think that again we do have data on hormone replacement therapy, and majority of this data obviously came from 1990s from women, right? And we did this clinical trial that looked terrible, and everyone immediately said hormone replacement therapy does not work. Period. It only has bad outcomes. Here's the black warning and things like that. And then it went everywhere in every news and things like that. And then we've done several more clinical trial in females, and it turns out that if you start replacing hormones in women early on, once they hit the right age, and then especially those who are at risk, those likely will have a better control of their symptoms and things like this, and it's likely going to do nothing bad for your cardiovascular system. It's not going to cause any cancers or anything like this. So this is, how science evolved. In terms of testosterone replacement, just again, like if you have an indication to replace, meaning you are deficient. So yeah, I think that this is there's a reason why you have deficiency in first place. I've seen so many bad things happen when someone doesn't use a hormone replacement therapy, but rather uses this as anabolic steroid and get the levels to inhumane levels, and then ends up with clots, heart failure, you name it. And that's what's so important, to do it the right way. Be upfront with your providers, what your goals are, and so on. I just see a guy, very athletic guy, in his late 50s, exercises nonstop, doing great. And then one day goes to a laser clinic because that's where everyone gets their testosterone, and
Hmm.
gets like a horse dose of testosterone. And I mean, like, horse dose. Like, no one alive should be getting the dose of testosterone. Feels amazing, by the way. Feels like, he's reborn. A little bit angry, and hair is starting getting
Yeah.
thin. No wonder. But goes on treadmill and performs just, double what he normally is, and then drops with cardiac
Mm.
arrest. So, successfully resuscitated, you know and it turns out that this huge dose of testosterone caused excessive hypertension, and he
Mhm.
does have a cardiac condition that was never diagnosed, and he goes into cardiac arrest. So obviously now doesn't want to do anything with testosterone. Despite he does have actually slight deficiency, he can probably do something gentle and to again take care of the symptoms. We don't know if this helps with any type of prevention, as I would say. Again, in ladies, we still don't have any data to suggest that this will prevent cardiovascular disease. Nor in men, obviously.
Mhm.
Certainly, a lot of times it will treat the symptoms of menopause for females, and make take care of the same similar issues with males. But I've never seen any good success stories where in this inhumane doses when levels are not controlled, where you don't check your troughs and things like this. So yeah, there are definitely problems with those aesthetic clinics where those get injected.
Yeah, what scares me a little bit, I mean, back to the bro science, and there's a lot of people at the gym
Yeah.
utilizing that TRT, and I do think about the stress it's putting on the heart. If you have a propensity to have some kind of a heart condition, is this gonna be something that puts you over the top? It's hard to imagine that it's not.
Seen it happening too many times. That's why, again, I would talk to a provider who knows you. If you are actually if you are a man looking for testosterone replacement therapy, urologists would be usually the person who would prescribe it to you. And that's when this conversation will happen. You'll have to do a special blood work. You want to check your levels. You want to see the rest of the blood work. You want to make sure your liver is okay. You want to make sure your kidneys are okay. You want to make sure your cell counts are okay. And then certainly, if you are a man in your 50s in the United States of America and you've never seen cardiologists, you do want to see a cardiologist prior to starting something like this because, number one killer in this country is cardiovascular disease. And, this group that you described is unfortunately the group that gets that the most.
Can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Any social media platform you go to, just type heart_transplant_doc or just type heart transplant doc and you'll find me there. Make sure you hit like, share, and
follow. That is a big differentiator. Yes. Excellent. Is there anything else that you want to say before I go ahead and wrap this up?
Yeah, it's we talked a lot about your heart health today, and I would just say prevention is the key. Um, like you said, it has to be actionable, but just prevention itself is an action. You're not just preventing heart failure, you're not just preventing cardiovascular disease, you're preventing disease. It's just as simple as this. No one wants to be sick. We all want to live long, have a good quality of life, and we all want to be well when we live long. So, and I think that's the key. You start in your 20s and 30s, hopefully, maybe even earlier than that, and then you get there without peptides. So I'm not anti-peptide. I'm pro science, and that's the whole point of it.
I love that. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, Dimitri, this has been powerful.
Right.
Every time,
I'm glad.
Yeah. And every time I speak with someone who lives in the world you live in, a world where the stakes are kind of measured in, I'll say it, measured in heartbeats and second chances and families getting more time, right? I'm reminded medicine is really just the intersection of science, courage, and humanity. And you, my friend, embody all three. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to hear your story, your journey, your perspective, your willingness to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, your commitment to elevating the conversation about heart failure and what success can look like. It matters. And it shows because it's not a surprise that you are blowing up the way you're blowing up, because what you do matters to patients, matters to families, matters to clinicians coming up behind you, to anyone listening who needs a push to take their health seriously. So thank you. Not just for the work you do in Memphis, not just for the people whose lives you extended or whose futures you have restored, but for showing up today with honesty, clarity, and purpose. As Dr. Yaronov mentioned, for anyone listening, follow Dr. Yaronov at heart_transplant_doc at Instagram. And if there was ever a physician who could change the way you think about your heart, your habits, or your future, it's this guy right here. And now, as always, we will end like this. This life is what you make of it. The future you is waiting patiently to meet the current you. Continue to keep the promises you make to yourself and fight like hell to find your tomorrow in today. Until we meet again, eyes wide, see everything. Goodbye.
Ooh, I love it.